Lord. Purport. In the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Srimati Lakshmana became embarrassed when she realized that she had been talking about herself. And so she spoke this verse praising her co-wives. In her humility, Lakshmana claimed that Krishna's queens, unlike ordinary wives, could not bring their husband under control, and thus they could relate to him only as servile housekeepers. In fact, however, since the Lord Queens are direct expansions of his internal pleasure potency, Hladini Shakti, they fully controlled him with their love. Omagyantiranandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurundalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Rupa Shri Sanatana Bhatta Buddha Shri Jiva Gopal Mata Dasara Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sohoruto Gaudaraye Pushpavantu Chitro Sundo Tamo Nudo Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavandu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptagalchara Gaurange Radhe Vyamadishwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Svacha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So this is a wonderful concluding verse spoken by Krishna's queen Lakshmana. She refers to herself and the others as dasi. Who are you? I am Krishna Das or Krishna Dasi. That is the identity of the Vaishnava. When we take Vaishnava Diksha, there are 5 samskaras. Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this. Ramanujacharya speaks about this. The Pancha Samskara is technically what the Vaishnava Diksha initiation ceremony entails. So the 5 are dasa nama. We receive a name that says you are Krishna Das, or the name of Krishna's devotee Das, or Dasi. So that is our identity, and that is our siddhanta. Our siddhanta, our conclusion and study of Shastra in receiving the teachings of Bhagavatam and Gita through our Vaishnava Sampradaya is to reinforce for us this identity. You are dasa, you are the devotee of Krishna. The other elements are yaja, the performance of sacrifice. We have to have a sadhana. So sacrifice for us means chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, doing some service for the deity, doing some service in the temple. That is yaja. Another aspect is tapa, austerity. What are you prepared to give up? So we give 5 vows. We promise to avoid eating, gambling, intoxication, and illicit sex. And then the most important vow is to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on japa beads, a certain prescribed number each day. 5th element, I think we're at now, catch me if I'm wrong, is Urdhva Pundara. Urdhva Pundara relates to our objective or our goal. And it is, what is our goal? Prema Bhakti, it is service in eternal service in the spiritual sky. And so pointing upwards is our tilak. We have an upward facing tilak, an upward pointing tilak, Urdhva Pundara. That relates to our goal. Tad Vishnu Paramam Param Sada Pasyanti Sureyaha Divi Vachakshuratatam Tad Vipraso Vipanjavoja Vivagam Sasamindate Vishnu Yat Paramam Param. The Suras, or the Devas, or the Brahmanas, or the Vaishnavas, they are always looking upward at the lotus feet, toward the lotus feet of Vishnu. That is their goal, that is their aspiration. So I'll repeat them again just to make sure I got the 5. Dasanama, Yaja. So Dasanama, identity as a servant of the Lord. Yaja, to perform sacrifice. Tapa, to engage in austerity, which for us means to avoid the activities that cause us to forget Krishna. Okay, so then mantra is the other. We have the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We also have other mantras that we're given, and that facilitates our performance of yaja, or service, as deity worship in particular. And so these mantras, they also act as a guide, a guiding mechanism for the benefits or the effects of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it is like a desire tree. You chant it, you'll get anything you wish. You could get heavenly planets. You can achieve the position of Indra by chanting Maha Mantra. You can achieve mukti, liberation. You can achieve Vaikuntha, service to Lord Narayan and Vaikuntha. And or you can achieve Goloka Vrindavan Dham. So we have some specific mantras like Gopal Mantra, Gopal Gayatri, Kama Gayatri, Gaura Gayatri. They help to steer our aspiration. As we chant the Maha Mantra, we're chanting with a certain intent or purpose to get one outcome, and that is service to Sri Sri Radha Shyama-Sundar, Sri Sri Radha Muralidhar in Vrindavan Dham. So that is the way of that's the Vaishnava Diksha. The identity of the Vaishnava dasa, as Lakshmana is saying here. Dasa, dasi. The 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, one from Madhva, through Brahma, through Madhva, one from the Kumaras, one from Rudra, Lord Shiva, through Vishnu Swami, Vallabhacharya, one from Lakshmi, through Ramanujacharya. And in all 4 Sampradayas, then dasa, to be the servant of the Lord, is the siddhanta, it is the aspiration. The activities of the Lakshmis in performing seva, or service, is described in the Bhagavatam. When it describes Vaikuntha, it says that there are thousands of Lakshmis who are cleaning the already spotlessly pure abode of Vaikuntha. Similarly, in Brahma Samhita, Lakshmi Sahasrasatasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindavari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. We worship Govinda, who resides in Goloka, where he's served by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis who are engaged in service. Why are they cleaning, serving, when the place itself is already spotlessly pure? Because there is pleasure in service itself. The service is what gives anand to the devotee. For one who is a dasa of Krishna, then the opportunity to serve, it is a great privilege, it is a great joy, it is a great opportunity, something to celebrate. And so the devotees are finding, the Lakshmis, they're finding opportunities to serve Krishna for his pleasure, but also they are taking pleasure in this. And so we can learn from this that this service to Krishna, it is the means to cultivate a relationship, but it is also for the devotee the goal. They're not looking for something else. I did the service, now pay. I did the service, now give mukti or give svarga or give some other reward. So the devotees say, I did service, now please give me more service.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in each of these prayers of these queens. They say, we just want to serve. We just want to be engaged in this service. If we actually do a comparison of the different verses spoken by the queens here, we'll find pretty much each of them, except for one, they all finish with an aspiration for service. Satya, Bhadra, and Yambavati, they all mention dasa or dasi or dasam or dasyam. Specifically, Rukmini and Mitravinda, they mention they want to serve the feet of Bhadra as well. They want to serve Krishna's lotus feet. Charana Archana, I think Rukmini says. And then Bhadra says she wants to serve Krishna's feet life after life. She's not aspiring for liberation. She wants to serve Krishna's lotus feet life after life. The one conspicuous exclusion here is Satyabhama. She doesn't have a prayer for service. She just tells her story. And yeah, that's characteristic of her. She has a contrarian nature. The acharyas actually mentioned the commentaries on her verse. They say her mood is more like a friend, a Shaki, rather than a wife, like in the traditional Vedic sense of awe and veneration. Otherwise, sometimes it's said that in Dvaraka, Satyabhama, she has more a mood similar to Radharani, a contrarian nature. It's appropriate for a girlfriend in Vrindavan, not really the way of a wife, a Vedic wife in Dvarka. Therefore, Rukmini, she's the head queen, although Satyabhama is favored. Krishna really likes her company and her way of dealing. But in Dvarka, Rukmini's more submissive and reverential attitude is the standard. That's the standard. Satyabhama has her own thing going on, and she doesn't pray for service here either. Another nice exception, but in a different way, it'll be the next couple of classes, I guess, is the 16,100 queens headed by Rohini. Their prayer is something else, and it's very wonderful. They pray for the dust of Krishna's lotus feet with the kumkum from his activities with the gopis. They say, just like the Polinda women of Braja and the gopis aspire for this dust, this reddish dust of Krishna's lotus feet, that's what we aspire for. And our acharyas explain that dust that they aspire for is actually on Krishna's lotus feet. It is actually an aspiration for Radha Dasyam, for service to Srimati Radharani, and an acknowledgement of her supreme position. How did they come to that idea? How do you come to, as a Dvarka Mahishi, as a queen of Dvarka, how do you come to the point of aspiring an aspiration similar to the residents of Vrindavan, and to be in the wake of the lotus feet, who are basically aspiring for the dust of Krishna's lotus feet from his, with indications of his affairs with Srimati Radharani. That is explained by our acharyas. They received the mercy of Uddhava. Uddhava, who went to Vrindavan, met with the gopis, heard Radharani's Brahmara Gita, his prayers of madness and separation. So he has learned by Krishna's arrangement of the uniqueness of the love of the Brajagopis and specifically of Srimati Radharani. And he's shared this knowledge with the 16,100 queens. And so they have cultivated this aspiration in their hearts. And it gives rise to another wonderful pastime, esoteric pastime. I don't want to take away too much from whoever will give class tomorrow and the day after. So I will leave it there. And you can ask that speaker what insight they might have there. Lakshmana's prayer is also different in a special way. That's been explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So the prayer that we're reading here, 39, she's saying, we queens have all become personal maidservants. So Vayam Griha Dasika, our aspiration. Her prayer is inclusive. We queens, not I. All the other queens concluded with I want to be Krishna's dasi. I want to serve his lotus feet life after life. Here she's saying, we want to be Krishna's dasis. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is telling us why. And that is because she has spoken for a long time. And she's just come up out of her trance and realized, whoa, they all had one verse each. I just spoke 27 verses. And so as a kind of an acknowledgement of them, having taken their time, even she includes them in her prayer, which is beautiful. So we can also contemplate some further on how is it that Lakshmana has taken so much time, whereas the other queens, including the head queen, Rukmini, got one verse. The second queen, Satyabhama, second in chronology in terms of when the marriages took place, but maybe in terms of favor as well, there's competition between Rukmini and Satyabhama. And in many temples in India, South India in particular, they'll worship Krishna with Rukmini and Satyabhama, including in ISKCON Chennai. Those are the deities there. In harmony with local bhavana, with local sentiment, then the deities installed there are Krishna, Rukmini, and Satyabhama. So yeah, we could contemplate further why Lakshmana has so many more verses than the other queens. And there are a few reasons explained by our acharyas. One is that she's gone into ecstasy. She just lost concept of time. That happens, right? When you become engrossed in something, then you just lose awareness of the passing of time. A lot of research on this phenomenon, flow, going into flow, losing the sense of time. So she's gone into an ecstasy, lost sense of time. Our acharyas say also that she thought these other queens are being very shy. Draupadi asked us a question, how did we meet Krishna? And they're all sharing their story in one little short, pithy little verse. I'm not going to be shy. And so she told her whole story in more detail. So that's another explanation given. We can also look at it in terms of composition. The other queens have already had their stories told. Rukmini's story is told over 4 chapters. Her story, the story of her wedding, and then of her son, Pradyumna, being kidnapped. So this is her story, the story of her marriage, and then her son. And then her grandson, Aniruddha, gets a whole chapter, 2 chapters, because 2 of his marriages. One to Usha, and then one with Rukmavati, or like the granddaughter of Rukmi. So the story of Rukmini and her family is told over 5, 6 chapters. So she's had her chance to tell her story in the Bhagavatam. Similarly, the stories of Satyabhama told in 56, chapter 56, 56 and 57. So she had 2 chapters. And then Jambavati, her story is told in 57. And then the others have their stories told somewhat more briefly, but told nonetheless in more than one verse. Kalindi had her story told in quite some depth, how she comes to marry Krishna. She's performing austerity outside of Hastinapura on the bank of the Yamuna. Krishna sees her, he likes her, he sends his friend Arjuna to inquire as to who she is. And so her story's been told, as is that of Bhadra and Mitravinda with the 7 bulls, and Satya as well. And so this is Lakshmana's chance. Sukadeva Goswami's taken this opportunity to tell Lakshmana's story. One other consideration. Why is this the right moment for Lakshmana's story to be told? Because of the audience. The audience is Draupadi. And the stories of Lakshmana and Draupadi are very similar. And in fact, that's another reason why Lakshmana has spoken in detail, because there is a similarity, there is an affinity between them. Hey Draupadi, our stories are almost the same. You were married at a Swayamvara. Arjuna, there was a wheel, there was a fish. Arjuna had to look into a pool of water. There was a wheel and a fish and a Swayamvara. My story as well. And she thinks that their Swayamvaras are the best. Their marriages, both she and Draupadi had the best marriages. Jiva Goswami explains this. Because they're similar, she thinks they were the best. Each of them, Krishna has to show some gallancy, some chivalry, some gallancy to go out and really fight for them, fight for his beloved. And to, in a way, it's a demonstration of his love and his commitment to this queen. So they all take pride in the obstacles that Krishna had to overcome to win their heads, whether defeating 7 bulls or fighting so many kings or kidnapping, or whatever it is, they are all taking great pride in what Krishna had to do to win their heads. And so Lakshmana, she feels that the obstacles that Krishna had to overcome, Krishna and Arjuna had to overcome to win the heads of she and Draupadi are similar, but then, of course, it was even more difficult, Lakshmana's marriage, because the fish was covered. And so there's just one other element to make this an even more impossible feat that Krishna achieved in order to be able to win her head. And that way also demonstrating Krishna's, not just his heroism, but he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's a distinction between Krishna and Arjuna. He's the Supreme Lord. So because of these similarities, Lakshmana, she finds an affinity and she's excited. And so she's sharing her story in so many more verses, 27 verses. There's a lot we can learn from these descriptions, aside from our identity as dasa and our aspiration as dasa, and that we should learn to also take pleasure, see our pleasure as service, or see Krishna's service as our pleasure that we aspire to, and recognizing that the means and the ends are both the same. Also, there's something for us to learn in appreciating unity and difference, that the queens all have a similar story. They're all Krishna's wives, but there is also a difference in their stories. There is a unique relationship. So that's personalism. We all have a unique relationship with Krishna. And then Lakshmana is showing that these relationships with Krishna and similarities in our relationships with Krishna also create affinities between us. Svajati. Svajati is the idea wherein we are, Rupa Goswami mentions, he says you'll respect all devotees, but some devotees will be svajati. That will be in the same line. They'll be in the same mood of service. And so you'll have a special affection, a special affinity for them. If they are your seniors, you'll learn from them, you'll faithfully serve them, you'll receive spiritual guidance from them. If they are peers, then you'll establish firm friendships with them and support each other in your devotional practice. If they are juniors, then there will be people that you personally take an interest in supporting and lifting up. So this principle of svajati is there in the teachings of our acharyas, and we see a nice demonstration of it here with this affinity between Draupadi and Lakshmana, or Lakshmana and Draupadi. A last point, as we want to make time for comments and questions, and that usually reminds us that we can learn from Draupadi, is about how to associate. She is the one who has instigated this kata. She's the one who has instigated this sangha. And it has come about because of her question. So how we can get the benefit of devotees association? Ask a really good question. You want to associate with senior devotees, you want to get the benefit of their association? Meditate, be thoughtful, be conscious, and then go with a good question that you can extract, you can mine the treasure of their wisdom and experience and realizations. Krishna tells us, Tadvini pranipatena, inquire submissively from the devotee. And so Draupadi is demonstrating this. She's asking just a really great question of these queens, and then that has led to this lengthy description from each of them of their relationship with Krishna. We also, so the principle of asking questions is one thing we can learn, but even the nature of the question is something we can learn from. When you meet a devotee, well, let's just go for an immediate translation. If you're meeting a devotee couple, you can say, how did you meet? That's what Draupadi's asked. How did you meet? And you'll, like, let's say you invite devotees for dinner. You're worried about what you're going to talk about for 2 hours. Ask the couple how they met. There's your dinner conversation covered for the rest of the evening. But there are other ways that this can be phrased. Doesn't have to be in terms of, you say, how did you become a devotee? There you are. How much time do you have? That question will lead to so many stories and will open up so many other questions. How did you take shelter of your spiritual master? There's another one. That's a story. That's a question that will just reveal so much about the heart of that devotee, about their history of service, their relationship with their spiritual master and other devotees. In Poland, I was running an ashram in the south of Poland called Krishna Bhakti Ashram in the 90s. And we would organize a Sunday program. We would try to organize it as a festival every week. Devotees started coming from other parts of Poland just to be at our Sunday feast because it was always exciting. And yeah, we would do plays and we would always have a theme for our Sunday feast. And but the most memorable one from all of them was called Coming to Krishna. And we had a panel of devotees, a selected panel of devotees, and we asked them each to tell their story, how they became a devotee. that was the most memorable of all of them for me, because each one was just so heartfelt, authentic, sincere, entwined with funny, anecdotes, but then deep philosophical realization as well. There's you go from being a non-devotee to someone who's surrendering to Krishna. There's a lot of transformation and realization that takes place there. And so in terms of impact, that was the most memorable of all of those events. So that question, how you became a devotee, it's very powerful. And I think Bhagavatam used to have a section as well called Coming to Krishna. And each issue used to be every month. Each issue would have a story of one devotee telling their story. Will become Coming to Krishna consciousness movement. And so, yeah, Draupadi's question is really wonderful. And there's a lot we can learn from it in terms of devotee association as well. So there I conclude. I have reflected on Lakshmana's prayer in relation to dasi, wanting to be a servant. We spoke about the identity of the devotee as dasa, and the pancha samskara, the 5 rites of Vaishnava initiation. We spoke about the 4 Vaishnava sampradayas. And then we did a comparison of the different prayers of the queens, and how a few others have also mentioned dasa or dasi. All of them end with a prayer for service, one except Satyabhama. And then we spoke about why Lakshmana has taken so much more time than the other queens. And it's ecstasy, and it's boldness. There's also a compositional element to it. But there's also this element of affinity between her story and Draupadi's story. And then finally, we spoke about association, and specifically in relation to Draupadi's question. Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
Hold on 1 second.
Please.
Like you mentioned about the mood of Satyabhama is like Radharani.
Yeah.
Mood of Rukmini is Chandravali.
Right. Yes, thank you.
Just one time.
Yeah, very good. So that's why, yeah, very good. Thank you for that. So we have the left wing and the right wing. So in Vrindavan, Srimati Radharani, she's the left wing, and Chandravali is the right. The left, a contrarian mood, and the right, a mood of submissiveness. And in Vrindavan, where the relationships are, they're Krishna's girlfriends, Radharani's mood is supreme. In Dwarka, you also have right and left. Right is Rukmini, left is Satyabhama. And in Dwarka, where the mood is all reverence, and it's a husband-wife, a legal husband-wife relationship, then Rukmini's mood is supreme. She's the chief queen, and Satyabhama is secondary. Thank you for that.
Thank you for opening up. That was my question, kind of, and you started to answer it. So, because I've heard that before, but somehow this morning it really sat with me that, like, okay, because you explained like whatever 5, 6, 7 chapters are focused on Rukmini, and only 2 on Satyabhama, and it seems that in our Shastra, when we're following in the lineage of Srimati Radharani, and almost pitted against Chandravali, then you have so many chapters that focus on Chandravali and her relationship with Krishna, whereas Shukadeva Goswami, as we know, he won't even say the name of Srimati Radharani. So I'm just wondering if you could comment on that.
Yeah, thank you. So that the right wing mood is called Dakshina Bhava. It's appropriate to Dwarka. It's appropriate to Vaikuntha. It's appropriate in our dealings with our Guru. We give Guru Dakshina. right? When we take initiation, we give dakshina to the spiritual master. And so the reverential mood is important for us to learn as well. In Vrindavan, Krishna likes the informality and he likes being scolded by Mother Yasoda, despite the fact that he's God. He likes that Radharani gets angry with him and exhibits her mud. Despite the fact that he's God, they don't care. Their love for him transcends their consciousness or awareness of his divinity. So that's our aspiration. But Prabhupada is so forceful in emphasizing, you come to the 10th canto for a study of the other 9 cantos to begin with, which establish Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, which establish Krishna as God. And so for us, we start with dasya, dasa nama. We start with the reverential attitude. And as but with an awareness of Krishna's playful associations in Vrindavan and how that pleases him most. So that's there as our aspiration. But as we practice our sadhana, we practice in a dakshina bhava, a submissive mood of reverence towards our spiritual master, towards Gauranga, towards Radha and Krishna, who we're also worshipping in opulence on the altar. And in time, that more intimate mood is awakened for those who are aspiring to it by hearing about and chanting the appropriate mantras and prayers and cultivating internally the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. So yeah, Rukmini's mood is important for us to be conscious of. And yeah, that mood of reverential services is important for us to learn as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Your classes are immaculate and intricate and, so wonderful. The interesting thing, I'm praying to Prabhupada what to say, what occurs to me is that the classic seeker story, someone looking for the truth and longing for, some fulfillment and finding access to devotees and Krishna, and then feeling, fulfilled. But what comes out is that it's consoling to remember that although we are seeking, that actually, on the other hand, Krishna is looking for us. And in Lord Chaitanya's movement, we're focused and endeavoring intensely to reach people, to include people, so it's the person hungering and also Krishna longing. Like when Radhanath Swami, when he Bhakti Tirthamar said, you need to write a book about how he came devotee. He said, well, I'm not inclined to write about myself. And Maharaj said to him, this is not about you. This is how Krishna arranged experiences for you and called you and brought you home. It's about Krishna, so it's like interesting to know that the stuff going on from both sides is not just to one side. What's that old balloon song? Around the world I search for you. Remember that? I traveled on when hope was gone to make a rendezvous. I knew somewhere, somehow, I'd look at you and you would smile, the smile you're smiling now. That there's somebody looking for his beloved, and there's also the beloved longing for that connection. Anyway, to move over to Sri Prabhupada.
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And so you raise a wonderful point, and there's an added complication there, and that is we have told Krishna we want to be apart, and Krishna respects that. So he's given us our independence, and he is not forcing or imposing his love upon us. He could so easily arrange for us to see him and want to be devotees, but then he's not. And so that's an interesting and intricate balance that Krishna has to navigate between just being neutral and not rushing forward and saying, my lost soul, take me, let me embrace you and bring you home. He won't do that because he's respecting the choice, the decision of the living entity to be independent, but he's wanting to do that. So there's an added tension there.
There's a Rabbi Gilberman, he used to give class here, and he has this interfaith seminary. And I didn't know this, but in the Judaic tradition, there's also an understanding of a feminine aspect. I can't think of the name, it starts with an S. But he told us that when the conditioned soul leaves Adam and Eve, disobeying or they're driven out, that the feminine aspect goes with them. This Durga or whatever, I don't know, somehow, that's what he told us. And he said that, so Krishna's like, wait a minute, we lost the kids here. And he said, so in everybody's heart, to the degree that we perceive that, it varies, but in everyone's heart, we can hear the voice of Krishna saying, come back, come back. Like you were saying, that there's a reciprocal looking for that completeness.
There was a question in the chat from Sadhvi. The clock's going to blow, I think. She said, you mentioned about dakshina. May I humbly ask, what is the appropriate amount?
The appropriate amount is what really it's the expression of your heart. Yeah, there is no numerical sum.
I heard Radhanath Maharaj give an answer to that similar. He said you should give right up to the point where it pinches and starts to hurt.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sri Prahlad Prabhu Ki.
Shekhinah, right. That's
Jai. Spiritual Master, the way by which we can obtain pure devotional service. I bow down to those feet, great awe and reverence. By His grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from His lotus mouth. Attachment to His lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From Him ecstatic karma emanates, and by Him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing this character. Our spiritual master, the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter at your lotus feet. Jai.
Thank you, Janitai Prabhu. Thank you, Sri Prahlad Prabhu.
Hope you feel better, Prabhu.
Arjuna Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you.
Hari Hari.
I see Arjuna Prabhu and I feel better immediately. I see Bhima Prabhu riding his tractor. I feel better immediately. Okay, welcome to the Afterglow. Would anyone like to speak? No? Okay. How about Jagannath Gopal Prabhu? Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, did I get it right that the right wing is when you revere Krishna, and then left wing is when you chastise Krishna and get mad with him, and that the left wing mood is considered higher in Vrindavan, and then the right one is considered predominant in Dvaraka? Did I get that right?
I don't remember exactly, but yeah, that does sound right. Right wing is traditionally when you conform to the way things are supposed to be, and left wing is when you want to go out of that purview. So yeah, left wing would be those who chastise Krishna because they are not in one sense conforming to Krishna's supremacy or whatnot. Yeah. I did have one question that I wanted to ask Sri Prahlad Prabhu, but maybe some other time, was that he mentioned about this Sajatiya Ashaya Snigdha Bhagavad Bhakti Sangha. We need to associate with devotees who have a similar attitude, they want similar things out of bhakti. Sajatiya, same nature, Ashaya, same aspirations, and Snigdha, affection. ಹೌದಾ ಮನೆಯಿಂದ question ಕೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ wait please. So in process of evaluating this, who is, you know, whom we should associate with, in the process of doing that, I mean, at least I have seen myself doing this, is that I end up labeling devotees. Oh, this devotee is maybe too strict, too conservative, you know, I don't want to be with this person, I'll keep my distance, you know, things like that. So but Rupa Goswami is saying that you need to associate with devotees of similar nature. So my question was, how do we balance these two things, like evaluating devotees? I mean, evaluation is also a wrong word. It's not really, you're not evaluating, but then you're trying to figure out. So, but in the process of figuring out, how do we avoid this tendency of the mind to label someone? And yeah, that was my question.
A great question. I have the same question, Jagannath Gopal. In one sense, it's true that we need to seek the association of like-minded devotees who are better than us, devotees who are affectionate to us. But on the other hand, how do you not drift into labeling devotees and sizing them up? Great question. Okay, Adipusha Prabhu, do you have an insight on that? How do you know who to associate with?
Krishna will give you the quality of association you're asking for. That's what Prabhupada said. And if you want somebody, even in the terms of guru, you want somebody you have an excuse not to listen to, Krishna will give you some second-class person. But if you really want the truth and you want genuine association, Krishna will give you first-class association. And then it's up to us to, like Sri Prahlad was saying, inquire submissively. You know, if we think we know everything, and out of pride we think nobody knows more than me, then Krishna will allow us to go on with that ridiculous attitude. But being humble and realizing, Krishna surrounding me with so many wonderful devotees. Actually, Rudhisthira, when he was sent out to find somebody lesser than him, he said, I couldn't find anybody lesser than me. I couldn't find anybody lesser than me. I'm the lowest. Everyone is closer to Krishna, right? So we can treat them with respect and with affection and be grateful for what they have to teach us. Look at Radhanath Swami. I mean, he comes here and I'm sitting in the temple room and he throws himself over me like a rug, like a blanket, and I just smell this saffron. How could he look at somebody like me and even can think I'm even worthy of even a shred of his attention, much less respect and affection? So Krishna will help us. Why not? Right?
Yes, thank you. So that's one strategy. We need to pray to Krishna to send us a good quality devotee for us to associate with. And Krishna will fulfill that desire. Then there's another, not another, but in addition to that, I remember at a brief talk, maybe even a reel or something on Instagram by Gauranga Prabhu. He was saying that a Vaishnava is like salt. You throw him in any dish and he'll make it better. So in one sense, we can associate with any person. And if we have the humility, if we have all the qualities of the Vaishnava, then all of a sudden, we'll invoke the best in that person. We'll bring out the best in that person. Even you may feel like, oh, this is not my type, but then if you really train your mind to see the good in everyone, to fan that spark, like Vaisheshika Prabhu says, then you'll see all of a sudden that there's so much to admire in that person. All of a sudden, you're dealing with their true self, with their genuine self. One time, there were two devotees, they were fighting, they couldn't stand one another. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was in charge of that ashram where that was taking place, and he brought them to his room and he put them one in front of the other and had them say something good about the other one. And the first devotee was having a hard time saying anything good about the other one. And then he looks at him and says, well, he's a jerk, but at least he's wearing a tilak. And the other one went, yeah, I hate him, but he swept the temple room today. And then gradually, it really progressed into glorification, and they ended up weeping in ecstasy and hugging each other. So we can fan the spark always, even when especially when we feel, oh, this is not we can detect, Krishna is in our heart, and we can detect this attitude of sizing devotees up, like Jagannath Gopal Prabhu said. Krishna can help us from within the heart. Okay.
Anand Bihari Prabhu and Adipurush Prabhu, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you for the wonderful question. Okay, Jeffrey Eckler, Prabhu, had his hand up. And Min also. Is Min still here? Min, get ready after Jeffrey, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I was just going to add that this this idea that we could project or make judgments on someone's capacity to positively influence, negatively influence us, from our very limited perspective should not necessarily, in my opinion, be tied to whether they're externally projecting the symbols and physical characteristics of a specific faith or sampradaya or anything. I mean, Krishna can send you intelligence in the form of a rock, let alone a person who may not have the external capacities that you have come to identify as something that's acceptable. So
Yeah,
I
to
think
some
that
to some
the key
people,
point, the point of my addition here is that our hearts should remain open, and to Adi's point, with that open heart, Krishna will send you first class influence.
Thank you, Jeffrey Prabhu. Yeah, Krishna
Very
can
good.
send anybody. Imagine to somebody, Krishna sends us.
Oh, God bless that person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You never know. Okay, Min, are you ready?
Yes, I just had a question, and this is really stemming out of not understanding it maybe all the way. When it was spoken this morning about the 5 rites of Vaishnava initiation, and we go through the identification of a servant and tapas and so on, service and such. The last one, I believe he said, was the goal, and he's used a Sanskrit word that I didn't know and didn't understand, and I was just wondering if that goal is similar to or different from prayojana, the metaphysics of bhakti.
That would be Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. What are the 5 elements that she's talking about?
I'm just looking it up. Actually, when he was, I got in Urdhva Poundra. After that, I kind of lost little track. I was getting ready. Tapa, Pundra, Nama, Mantra, and Yaga. Nama, Mantra, and these 5 elements are. Yeah, I'll have to look this up. I can't think of anything off the top of my mind right now.
What about the top of your heart?
So the question is about the prayojan, right? So the question is, what if our goal is different?
Yeah, or if the goal that he was speaking of is the same as the goal we understand in the concept of prayojana.
Yeah, love of God would be that highest goal.
So that's the end goal for all, I guess, our path.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So to be engaged in one of the 9 processes of bhakti is the end goal for us. So in one sense, if we look at the practicalities of it, we often say this: the means and the end are same on the path of bhakti. So we chant the holy name. We strive to chant the holy name. Why? Because we want to chant the holy name. Because we want to express our devotion to Krishna like that. So yeah, the love of God, engaging eternally in one of the processes of bhakti is the ultimate goal that Vaishnava Acharyas say is what Vaishnavas should have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So prayojan is a little different. Just to add, prayojan is a little different. Prayojan is when we are situated in that state. So prayojan is the fulfillment of that. So the goal is set in sambandha actually. In sambandha is when the goal is said, okay, this is what my goal is, and then abhideya is when I strive for it. Okay, this is the process given for me to achieve that goal. And then prayojan is when we actually get situated in that state. So prayojan is when we go back to Godhead, or we attain that level of prema. So
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Interesting. Jeffrey Eckler says Sri Prahlad used the term Urdhva Pundram. Urdhva Pundram. What does that mean, Jeffrey Prabhu?
Well, when Sri Prahlad was speaking, he used that term and used the English word objective. When I Google it, I come up with something that's much more akin to tilak, but I don't know much more than that. I can't.
Okay, we'll ask him next time. Sri Prahlad Prabhu. Okay, would anyone like to speak? Adipusha Prabhu, what's your Urdhva Pundram today, for today?
No matter what you call it, she was describing very carefully, and Prabhu also mentioned to actually experience the loving relationship with Krishna. You know, I'm going back to the topic before this about association and qualitative. You know, it says that, of course, we get the quality of association we desire, but in the Hasidic tradition, they say if you have an evil person, bad to the bone. We used to have a neighbor and went in the Hells Angels. His name was Bad to the Bone. If you have a very dirty dogs, dirty deeds done dirt cheap. If you have an evil person, but you can find one good thing about him. Maybe he works hard, or maybe he's, whatever. And you meditate on that quality and let that quality inspire you in devotional service. Then that person is engaged in devotional service because he inspired you, and you're inspired. But if you have a good person and all you find is the faults, like the fly looking for the dirt in a beautiful room full of flowers, then you're meditating, or maybe this person did something bad, but maybe he confessed it and he rectified himself and he's been forgiven, and it's not even happening anymore, and you're just thinking about the dirt. Then that's not recommended. So we can become, what's they called, familiarity breeds contempt. Even some people, they're traveling with Srila Prabhupada as a personal servant. Several of them I know, Nanda Kumara and what's his name? They told us that you have to be very careful if you're with the Guru every day, and you start to think he's an ordinary person, or you start to disrespect him in your mind, you'll fall down. So we have to be very careful with devotees, not to offend them even mentally. We're all struggling with this. How to look for the good and be careful that pride doesn't slip in and we just look for some discrepancy and meditate on that. Anyway, that's sort of talking around the subject. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu. Yeah, why judge? Why not fan the spark?
We,
No, what's that?
we can judge the principle. It's not good if that we know that if a person does that, it's not good for their spiritual life. But whether or not that person is actually doing that, that's a little tricky. We don't have to, but it's not wrong to speak about the principle. It's not just yatamata tatamata. The Sanskrit is like, everybody's everything and nobody's nobody, and we we do hold very clearly the duty, the responsibility to indicate what is in it, what would be not good for a person. But to actually accuse that person of that is a little tricky. And Jesus said, love the sinner, hate the sin. Hate the sin, but love the sinner. There's a distinction between what somebody did and who they are. They're Krishna's part and parcel, our beloved God brother, God sister. Okay,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Tamnitai Prabhu.
Well, Dandavats, yeah, I was just reflecting on all this, and it's over my head to take it all in. But what came to me was this principle of Yukta Vairagya, in the sense of, I remember going to a Krishna restaurant here in Michigan, and they handed me a nickel and said, "Come, we'll show you the true meaning of Krishna consciousness." And then I was hitting to me now, like the principle of Yukta Vairagya, of like being able to understand the value of Krishna consciousness, but also when we're giving Krishna consciousness, like the value of seva, um, and at least when it comes to the transactional aspect of things like that. So the reason I'm saying this is, like, Maya is very strong, and like in the world, like we have like Facebook and Meta and cryptocurrencies, and so like the whole principle of how we've evolved from like 50 years ago till now, where we were using physical money primarily as a transaction, versus today where a lot of things are digital. But even in the digital realm, there's silver and metals used to do all the transactions. So what I'm trying to say is, like, how, as of or moving in the future, how can we keep the sanctity of Krishna consciousness? And that came to me as a little bit of like valuing the seva a lot, and like seva will save you. I've heard that many times in Krishna consciousness. So even from a point of view of a storefront, of how you know money can be used in service of Krishna, like in the sense of buying prasadam in a Krishna restaurant, um, but like then valuing that money and everything that we do, and then we would not have come to this point maybe of where every money is all digital. You know what I mean? Just like a reflective thing I'm saying of how valuable Krishna consciousness is, and how we can come back to that true principle. So that was my own like comment, reflection. It's a little bit over my head to think about, but like maybe we're wary of new age philosophies in terms of things, but also how we can dovetail that to Krishna consciousness. Like, I don't know. So I was just kind of reflecting on that. It's a very broad way of speaking, but um yeah, coming back to the roots. That's what I wanted to share. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Narottam Nitai Prabhu. Yeah, they used to have we heard about Naimisharanya in the forest, and now we are all on Zoom discussing the same subjects. Oh, okay. Krishna Kumari. It's a Sunday, we can go over time. Why not?
You got to go back to bed, though.
Host for 2 more minutes, Jeffrey Prabhu.
You need to go back to bed. You're not feeling well. I this conversation's gone to a whole nother space, and but I'm really into gift economy, and Daneshwar Prabhu has a book out about that. And in the spiritual world, there's no money at all. So, like, if everybody's doing their dharma, what their purpose is for Krishna, and fully fulfilled, there doesn't have to be an exchange of any money. Like, if you're growing food because you love to, you'd have so much, you'd be like, others could utilize it. And if you were a healer, you would just be like gifting, but then somebody else would be gifting you what you need. Anyway, I would love to go to that time. There's no money in Goloka.
Interesting comment, Krishna Kumari. Yeah. There's nothing transactional. We all give because we want to give. That's not because we want to get something in return. Shikshashtakam prayers teaches us that. Okay. All right. So let's wrap it up for today. Dear devotees, thank you for your association. Okay, we're going to ask Sa to unmute themselves and say Hare Krishna. Sa, please. S-A-H.
Oh my gosh. Hare Krishna.
Perfect. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everyone. Happy Sunday. We love you. We need you. Hare Krishna.